sending a follow-up 5 minutes after a demo, but it's just like a generic, like, hey, great to meet you. Like, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't help me as a buyer at all. That's just like you checking the box of following up.
90% plus of the conversation about what you're buying happens outside of you being present in that conversation.
Because the worst thing is like you get a churn 6 months after they buy, and then you look back at their usage and they never even got activated. It's just the worst feeling of like, we didn't even have a shot here.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bridge the Gap podcast, powered by Revenue Reimagined. We are debating whether it's Jamie Dimon or Jamie Dimon. Dale likes to correct me, but that is not why we're here. We are here because today's guest is Kim Hacker, who is the COO at Arrows, a platform that is near and dear to my heart. It's a platform for sales rooms and onboarding plans that actually lives inside your CRM. No more going out, no more reps having to have the login number 37. Kim's work focuses on eliminating the post-demo black box by giving every single buyer a personalized page with crystal clear next steps and syncing everything back to HubSpot and now Salesforce. Think mutual action plans, which is Dale's favorite word, but for more than sales. We're going to dig into what actually happens when the seller isn't in the room, how buyer hubs speed deals, and how connected onboarding turns closed won into retained and, more importantly, expanded. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What an intro. I love it.
It's the only reason I'm here. I'm going to go on mute. No, I'm not going to go on mute because then you're stuck talking.
No, he never goes on mute.
No,
he never goes on mute. Kim, welcome to the show. It's great to meet in person. We've done a lot of Slack interactions with some of our clients using the Arrows platform. Bouncing off of what Adam said, what buyers do when you're not there. You've written a lot about the buying process. Now what happens when sellers aren't in the room? What are buyers actually doing in that gap? And what evidence have you seen of that?
Yeah, I think, so I am often on our own buying committee at Arrows. And so I think since we started building a product, actually just a little over a year ago is when we started building sales rooms. And since then, or I guess when we launched sales rooms, and since then, I've been more aware of the buying process as a buyer because we're selling to sellers who are using this to send to their buyers. And I think we're actually in a buying process right now. And I think every time I'm just like, oh, wow, it's just kind of crazy how what we are doing is completely invisible. Like our internal buying process is completely invisible to the sales rep. They actually have no idea. Like, I mean, I'm very transparent as a buyer. So I'm telling people like, here's what we're thinking. Here's what we're prioritizing. Here's the other competitors we're looking at. And still there's so much conversation happening in our Slack between me and in this example, it's our head of customer success who's looking at this tool. And it's just been really eye-opening. Like in this example, we our first follow-up that we got after the first demos for these tools was at 10:30 p.m. the night after, or the night of our first demo. And we had 3 demos. Our first follow-up was at 10:30 p.m. The next one was over 24 hours later. And then the third demo never sent a follow-up. And so for us on the buying side, I'm in ChatGPT saying like, okay, here are the things I care about for these tools. We're comparing these 3. I've used this tool before, a different one. How does it compare? Like, how should I be thinking about the gaps between them? And honestly, ChatGPT is not super great at that because it's just reading what's on their website. And that's kind of what I was reading and not able to fill the gaps with. And so I just thought it was really interesting. We're like, I just gave you so much information on a 30-minute demo. Like, you know, everything, like, you know, the features that I care about most, you know, our use case, you know, the competitors I'm evaluating, and you're not supporting me through this, like, this part of the process because I'm not getting any kind of follow-up resources. And so we're just kind of like left to guess. And honestly, like we ended up booking a demo with another competitor because we were like, I feel like these aren't quite doing it for us. So I just think it's like being a part of the buying process while you are selling a sales tool is just a lot more eye-opening, especially when I'm thinking about like marketing messaging. And I'm like, oh, it's actually like the things that we say in marketing are so true and actually like even more true than we maybe even realized.
It's got to be so hard for you to buy, knowing that you're a good portion of your platform is to help sellers navigate that sales process. So when you're solving that for people all day, I would imagine it's got to be incredibly painful to sit through a process where, like, listen, they're not using Arrows, fine, but like nothing. zero,
Yeah.
no follow-up. Like that's got to be more painful than the average bear, because not only do you expect it, but you guys have, arguably perfected what it should look like.
Yeah, it's painful, but it's also honestly validating. Like I shared in our own Slack channel, like this is why people need arrows, and like we say it and we hear it from people, but to experience it firsthand, it just like I think makes us even more confident in like this actually would have been such a great use case for arrows. And like even when we did eventually receive the follow-ups, I was like, oh, like this took a long time because actually they were good. Both of them were great follow-ups, I will say. They just came late. But also like that would have been perfect in an arrow sales room, giving us the content that we need, giving us the competitor analysis, like all of that kind of stuff just came way too late. And then it was just like in a really long email that was like hard to read. So
you're gonna turn around and try to sell them arrows now, whether you buy from them or not.
Actually, one of them already like came in and was like, "Hey, before the demo, he's like, hey, we need your product," and I was like, "Great, let's talk about it."
So I have two questions. One is like, what if they use a competitive product of yours and then they sent you like the deal room like in that space? Would you still have like a perspective of, hey, at least they're using something?
I think so. Like I've never received, we don't buy a ton of tools, but like I'm in several buying processes per year, I would say. And I've never received, actually, I received one a few years ago when we were buying like our benefits and payroll platform. And that was my first experience of a sales room and I loved it. And this was before, like we were kind of like, oh, eventually we might build sales rooms, but we hadn't even gotten around to it or really had set any kind of timeline around it. And I loved it because at the time I think it was Rippling that sent it to us. We were using Gusto, and so I was trying to understand that difference, and I had told them I'm also evaluating JustWorks, and they gave me like the perfect relevant information, and I was like, this actually really does help me evaluate this, and I want to send it to my coworkers to be like, hey, did you know that this part is different? This is how it'll compare to Gusto. And I felt like it was really honest. So it's the only time though I've ever received a sales room. So I do think there are certain spaces where they're popular and they're becoming more and more popular, but there's still so many sales teams that are kind of botching the like post demo work.
So the second, I have another question follow up.
I don't care. No, go ahead.
So the other question I had for you is like, what's the optimal response time or recap time? Like, I have a perspective in my head, but what's your optimal like, recap time?
I honestly think optimal. So I would optimize for giving people great resources and like actually having a great follow up ahead of time. I would say in a way like sending a follow up 5 minutes after a demo, but it's just like a generic like, hey, great to meet you. Like that doesn't do anything. That doesn't help me as a buyer at all. That's just like you checking the box of following up. And honestly, like I have to say I've been in sales a lot of my career and I've done that a lot. So like
Dale does it all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I'm like, I have to send a follow-up, so I'll just send one quick. And but that's not really that valuable either. We now that we have sales rooms and are drinking our own Kool-Aid, I guess, we send our follow-ups within 5 minutes of a call ending. And so we'll generate the sales room and actually send them that quickly. So if you are able to have a personalized, tailored follow-up with the right resources, I think 5 to 10 minutes after the demo is ideal, because for me as a buyer, that's when I'm in Slack saying, hey, I just did this demo. I really liked it. And then people are asking me questions and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot the answer to that. And I wish I had like a resource or like my call recap or something like that so that I can research or reference that and then sound confident when I'm pitching that internally to my team.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I've always thought within 24 hours is like at least like the minimum. Like you have to do it within 24 hours because then you just get out of sight, out of mind. 5 minutes is crazy time, but because I have a hard time getting salespeople to do it within 24 hours. I'm like, why is this 3 days later and I haven't seen anything?
Yeah.
I mean, Dale's done with a demo and 5 minutes later he's going to like go out on the boat or something. He's like, I did my work for the day. So like, I'm done.
I will say it takes discipline for me. Like, so I'm doing some demos while we have one of our account executives on parental leave, and it takes discipline for me because when I get off of a call, I really want to check Slack or like send someone a message about something, and so it does take some discipline for me to be like, nope, I'm going right to the deal. We use HubSpot. I go right to the deal, create my sales room, send my follow up, and it's like I don't do anything until that's out. And it feels really good, honestly. Like I feel behind on so many things in my day to day. And that is one thing that I'm like, I feel really confident that I'm actually able to follow up and send great resources very quickly and kind of, prove out, how Arrows works, but also feel like that's a thing that I did check off a box and I feel great about what's in there.
Sure.
So let's shift gears a little, but stay somewhat similar. So there's sales rooms, you have your CRM, and what I kind of call like the next step chaos, right? So Dale asking when we should send a follow-up email. Dale thinks 24 hours. I love 5 minutes. I don't know if you don't have
There's
something
no
like
way
Arrows.
you could ever do 5 minutes. You couldn't do 5 minutes. No way.
I could if I had
No
a
way.
tool. I could if I had
We
a tool
use Arrows.
like Arrows. And it makes it very quick. And I do, for the record, Dale, I do send my Arrows rooms within probably 10 minutes. I won't say 5. But one of the things that I think trips up sellers is, to your point, Kim, it's this, do I send this quick, email right after that is super short, that's like, hey Kim, thanks so much, blah, 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 and adds zero value, and then send a second email? Do I wait and hope that I don't forget? You guys have taken this approach of kind of this personalized page, right, for every prospect. How does that help, not just like getting the follow-up out, but practically reducing the actual deal risk, and more importantly, speeding up what are these ridiculously long approval paths that we're seeing these days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in several ways. One is just like outlining the next steps. I think a big thing that we think about for ourselves, like we have a lot of our customers are people that are buyers of software, I guess. Like they're not, it's not their first time, but there's a lot of people who are not, don't know how to buy software. And that sounds, I think people underestimate that. They don't know. A lot of people don't know that they have to go through a security review and go to finance and do a legal review. Like there are so many parts of buying software or anything, but there are so many parts that I think people just think, okay, I'll do a demo. And then the buyer actually doesn't even know what their next step is. And so I do think that there's a lot of value in outlining like, hey, here's what we typically see. Does this process align with what your team needs? If not, you need to actually go probably talk to someone in your team and see, what do I actually need to do to purchase this software? And then kind of preempting those post demo questions that might come up, where again, like, you end a demo and then you're like, oh, I forgot to ask this. Or like in our case, for these demos that we were recently doing, there was one feature that I was like particularly interested in one of the tools. There's not a lot of information on their website. I couldn't find much. So like sending me like a deeper dive, a Loom video showing that kind of stuff. So I think anything to like answer the questions and kind of solidify, like, I was interested in that one specific thing. Give me more information as much as I can, because that's probably is going to be the thing that makes us decide. So I do think it's like being smart, listening to the buyer, understanding what is the thing that's unique that would make them buy this solution, and then putting that into a place where that champion that you're initially talking to, or the couple of people that you're talking to on the demo, can access that, share it around. But then also I think the big piece is being able to share those common resources with everyone in the larger buying committee that might not be on the calls. So I think we see that a lot. You can see the Arrows engagement activity. So like yesterday I sent out a sales room, like 5 minutes, sometimes sooner, after a demo. And it's like within, I actually showed it to our team afterward, but I was like, within 30 minutes, there was 30 minutes of view time in the sales room, because they had sent it around to 3 different stakeholders already. I could see that it was 3 different people that were viewing it. I could see that they were watching the call recording, that they were viewing the case studies. And so it's just like kind of getting everyone on the buyer side who are already having those discussions on the same page with the same resources. So you can kind of tailor, what are they talking about? What are they looking into?
I think that's one of the things that most people, when they think sales rooms, don't realize is, and you talk about this a lot, like 90% plus of the conversation about what you're buying happens outside of you being present in that conversation. And 9 times out of 10, you don't know who's in that buying committee.
Yeah.
You know a couple people that you're talking to, but you don't really know, because most people aren't going to tell you, oh, I really have to talk to John, Mike, Sally, and Sam.
Mm-hmm.
But what you do know with Arrows is John, Mike, Sally, and Sam have to enter their email to see the Arrows room. They now get, and I'll do a little sales pitch for you here, but they now get automatically added to HubSpot as contacts. You see exactly what they're looking at, and now you could tailor that messaging. This is how you drive sales, in my opinion, in today's selling climate, where historically you are blind to all of this. Now, if we could just teach Dale to go look at that and actually work on this stuff, we'd make process. But I think everything you're saying is right. And the fact that I love that right after you sent it, you were able to see all of that engagement. And it's also a really good way of knowing every rep has happy ears, right? Oh, they love the demo. It's great. It's going to move forward. Well, if you send the sales room and no one opens it and it doesn't get past anyone, the happy ears probably didn't exist. I would not put that in commit.
So I want to jump off of that a minute as well, because, there are some clients and I've used deal rooms, even before Arrows. But there is a sense that they may not open it. They don't know what it is. Like, there's some confusion around it. So if there is a lot of value in there, but they're not opening the room, what can sellers do, or what's the step to make sure the person understands what that deal room is, or I call it a collaboration room, because I think it goes beyond the deal. And ensuring, like, we have a client that uses Arrows now, but it's traditionally, it's not software. Like, the buyer's like kind of a different buyer, and we're putting proposals in there, and they're not used to getting proposals in a collaboration type room. What are some things that sellers can think about in that motion?
Yeah, I definitely recommend introducing it on the first call. So saying, like, for example, a lot of sellers will at the end of the call say, okay, so great meeting you. Here's what we discussed. Here's what I'm going to send you afterward. I'm actually going to put those all together inside one shared room. So I'm going to send you that link, and you'll get that in the email. It'll have everything in there, and it'll keep updated. So as you need more information, you'll be able to have it in there and share it with your team. So I think, like, you don't say Arrows, like anything like that. But I think just saying, like, FYI, we're going to send you this link. You don't even need to say room, but like, we're going to send you a link. It's going to contain everything that you need. And then anything that you need moving forward will still go in there. So that'll be like our place. And honestly, the same thing happens with onboarding plans. I would say most of our customers are not super tech savvy. Like, we see very commonly people are, like, we sell to a lot of SaaS customers, but they're selling to like restaurant managers or roofing companies, or like, I think that's super common where they're definitely concerned about that. But I think it's all in like how you say it's going to help the buyer.
I like the idea of link.
Yeah, so one link is so much better because everyone kind of knows what that is. But I think the thing to think about is, like, the sales rooms should help the seller for sure, but like ultimately they're there for the buyer. They're there to help the buyer have a better buying experience. And I think pitching it that way to the buyer and saying, like, this is going to help you, and all of your proposals, everything is going to be in here for you to access is best.
Yeah, and I often position it as something like, listen, like, we all get 1 million emails a day, and I don't want anything to get buried. I want you to have a single source of truth for anything that you might need to refer back to or share with your team. And this is going to allow us to do that. So I think what you just said is probably the most important thing. A lot of companies, certainly that we work with, whether it be Arrows or competitors of Arrows, it's, oh, we need this to make our sellers' lives easier. No. I mean, yes, that's a byproduct, but at the end of the day, this is to improve the buying process for your buyers, not the sales process for your sellers. People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I can tell you, no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com. So I love that you spoke about that. Kim, whether it's sales rooms, deal rooms, onboarding plans, you probably have more exposure to CRM than the average bear. I think you guys very purposely built out your product to link in with, HubSpot initially and now Salesforce now. When you're looking as a leader, as a revenue leader or an ops leader, when you're looking at, the CRM, what are what are the top 3 or 4 fields or milestones that you immediately look for to know whether this is a real deal or whether this is I have happy ears deal and I'm just going to keep it in my pipeline for the next 6 months and it's never going to close?
I will say we have one of the perks about being like an early stage startup is we have a small team that we trust a lot, and so we only have a couple of sales reps, and we are also not, as an organization, people that I think we have a lot of trust, and they like use that trust and keep their pipeline really well up to date. Actually, I've told them like it's wild to me how well you guys update the CRM without us ever like asking them to. Like I feel like that's so rare for
that is wild
account executives, and they're so good. Like the CRM is always up to date, and I think they're just like organized people, so they need it to be up to date so that they use HubSpot tasks to tell them when to follow up. Like they are just kind of meticulous about making sure they're doing the right things. So that is a huge thing. I don't honestly have to worry about it that much. But we do 2 things. We do have the sales room engagement showing on the pipeline view. So that's a really good way. Like I just go to our sales dashboard a lot and kind of just see where are the deals. I'll often filter to like closing this month or look at specific reps deals. So we have those tags showing if they're engaged. So that's really helpful to kind of get a sense like, oh, this is one is moving, or it'll say that they're stalled. And then you're like, all right, something's happening here. And then the other thing is we actually have a property in HubSpot called confidence level. And so that's a required property.
I stole that from you. I use that with all of my clients now.
Yes, I love it. And it's actually just like a helpful exercise as a rep, like now that I'm kind of back and doing some stuff in HubSpot. So anytime we move our deals out of the meeting scheduled stage, it's a required property. And so as a rep, you have to say, what is your confidence level that it's going to close? So it's confident, neutral, or skeptical. And so you say that, and it's actually just a good thing to be like, yeah, I actually feel like I would be really shocked if we lost this deal. Would be confident, neutral, and we have no one's judging what anyone puts there, but I think it's really helpful for us as a team to be like, okay, this one's confident to close. Like we still need to do a lot to work it, but also like that's our failure if they don't close at this point, because basically everything they told us on the demo sounds like they should be moving forward. Versus skeptical, honestly, for me, if I put something skeptical, I'm probably going to be less active with that deal because it doesn't seem like it's the best fit, or they don't have some kind of need for it, or it doesn't feel like the perfect use case. And so I'll kind of like let that one sit there and be a little bit more passive with it versus the confident ones working more. So I'd say like those are the 2 things that we really pay attention to understand, what's actually going to close like this month or this quarter.
I love the confidence scoring. I think Dale and I have long said that like both HubSpot and Salesforce, with their pipeline weighting or pipeline forecasting, because a deal is in, stage 3 means it has a 62%. Bullshit. That is not true. I actually have gone so far with all of our clients. I hide the automated fields and I only rely on the confidence scoring.
Oh, cool.
So love it. 100% aligned on that.
Yeah. And we filter out the skeptical deals from our forecast as well. So all of our forecasting reports just filter those out by default.
Nice.
Let's transition a little bit onto the onboarding part of sales. And I think this is I think this is where most organizations fail when they're actually going to execute on things. Because they're like, oh, salesperson done, like you're all set and you're moving on. You've led onboarding teams. How early should onboarding plans show up in sales cycles? How detailed should they be? And I'll start there. I have a couple of follow-up thoughts around this, but would love your perspective on it.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the process. I feel like we're seeing more and more people that actually need the onboarding plans to be introduced pretty early in the sales process. And a lot of times when we see that, it's because they're collecting some sort of information in sales that that factors into what happens post sales. So like
Sure.
they are getting information about what kind of integrations they need, or their existing tech stack or things like that. So collecting that information, you can collect it in sales rooms as well. But if it's something that is like a must have in order for them to move forward in the sales process, that also ties to the onboarding process, a lot of times people are bringing that in like the final stages of sales, getting that information and then transitioning that into onboarding. I think that works really well. We start our own onboarding plans at the tail end of the sales process. So when we're getting into like the agreement signing, we send them a we have a sales room basically for all of the buying process until they get to needing an agreement. And then we will add the onboarding plan to the sales room. And then that's when we kick off onboarding. So like their next steps in the onboarding plan are sign an agreement, pay for Arrows, and then that unlocks a gate to schedule your kickoff call. And then that kind of kicks off the onboarding process. But I think it works best. Not everyone needs to do this because sometimes people get overwhelmed when we tell them this, and like they don't. A lot of times people are, you all know, people are so worried about impacting their sales process that like sometimes they don't want onboarding teams getting involved. But I do think it works so well when you can introduce it at the end of the sales process, because it just keeps that momentum going from sales into onboarding. When people are paying or signing an agreement, they're the most excited and anxious, like, and nervous about, okay, like and honestly, like they're feeling that way because they want to make sure that they made the right decision and they're going to look good in front of their boss, and their boss is going to be like, oh wow, that was a great decision that you made. So they're feeling anxious. So give them next steps that they can follow so that they feel confident that this is going to get them to the outcomes that they wanted. And I think introducing it at that time is so powerful.
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of bringing operations or delivery or CS at least at the proposal stage, because my experience in sales is that we as salespeople, let's call it a enterprise type sale or even a mid-market sale. You may be selling this thing for 3, 4, 6, 12 months, and there's a lot of conversations that happen. And this is why I also like the Arrows room as a deal room, because you're consolidating, you're grabbing all of this information and you're kind of putting it in a place that's easy to digest when you're actually pushing it over to the onboarding process. So I love that.
Yeah, I think onboarding is so overlooked. We go through this whole process of a great sales process and making sure the customer, loves what they're buying and everything's wonderful. And then the onboarding is, hi, Kim, please meet Dale, blah, blah, blah. And we wash our hands of it. And then we wonder why time to value is, not what it needs to be, why customers are unhappy. And then we create this back and forth of, well, sales didn't sell it properly. Well, you didn't onboard it properly. Well, it's the wrong ICP, like whatever the reason is. And that could be solved with a proper onboarding process. When you look at onboarding, what are like the top 2 or 3 pitfalls that you think create that churn risk in the first 90 days that a tool for proper onboarding, whether it be an onboarding room or not, any proper onboarding tool can help solve?
Yeah, actually,
I can't speak today. I have like marbles in my mouth today.
What came to mind when you were saying that, which I've never specifically thought about before, but I feel like is probably happens more often than I realize is, you do have that often. There's some kind of handoff email between sales and onboarding. There's a lot of companies that don't have a specific dedicated onboarding team or onboarding function. And so I do think sometimes even there's just like, okay, the action happened again. It's like, check the box. Okay, I sent the handoff email. And then what happens if the person doesn't take action? What happens if the person doesn't book the kickoff call? Is there anyone that's tracking like this customer is not making any progress in onboarding? I think a lot of times those customers just kind of sit there, and we even see this ourselves. Like every company has some customers that are self-motivated and are going to proactively reach out to you for help with onboarding. And then you're also going to have people that you need to chase down. And that is just the reality of any business. You're never going to have like every single customer is going to be super self-motivated, getting themselves live and asking you the right kind of questions. And so I do think like the number one thing is have a person who is dedicated to making sure customers hit whatever milestones you have in onboarding. Because the worst thing is like you get a churn 6 months after they buy, and then you look back at their usage and they never even got activated. It's just the worst feeling of like, we didn't even have a shot here. And so I think that's step number one that I would recommend is like, make sure there's a person who is responsible for checking off and making sure they have those milestones. And then I do think that's where Arrows onboarding plans, or, you know, any kind of onboarding plan helps, is you can actually track those milestones and have a person that is dedicated to saying, okay, here are the things that we need this customer to do. You can give them those tasks. You can enable them to complete work on their own. And then you can also see if they're falling behind, or if they're constantly having overdue tasks. Like there's some kind of intervention that needs to happen. And I think just getting that kind of visibility is super helpful.
Yeah. I think that's the word of the day, right? Whether it's a sales room, whether it's onboarding room, it's the visibility. You don't know what's happening when you're not there. And having tools like this that allow you to have visibility into what happens when you're not in the room is ultimately what's going to help drive deals forward. I've been a huge fan of all of these type of tools for a long time. Some people do it well. I think some try to do it well. We could save that for another time, and we won't call people out by names. I have one more thing I want to go to before we go to rapid fire. We're going to go a little bit over. It was probably a couple months ago, Kim, you were doing a conversational intelligence teardown, for lack of better terms, on LinkedIn. I think it's the first and only time I've disagreed with you on anything.
Yes.
But you looked at almost every tool out there. Like, I was blown away. Like, I can't imagine the time that you spent to actually research this. And I think conversational intelligence is one of those areas of sales now that are absolutely necessary, but so commoditized that, like, we're going to assume everyone can record a call and give you a summary of it. That is table stakes. If that's just what you're doing, please, everyone, don't buy a tool. Just do it in Zoom and be fine. But there's so much more. In every call that we're on these days, there's obviously more AI note takers than there are people. We joke about it a lot. What did you learn from that teardown, specifically when it comes to accuracy, accountability, and risk? Because the space, like, it's craziness, and you've dug into it arguably more than anyone, unless you're a CEO or an employee of one of these CI tools.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will first say, like, I'm kind of shocked how many demos that we get that are evaluating Arrow's sales rooms and don't use a call recording tool yet. So I do think,
really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so I think that we are, and like, I think that we, like, everyone, like, so many of our partners and a lot of our customers are actively using them, but there were so many people, even, I think it was like March-ish when I launched that. And so many people were like, hey, we need one of these. And like, I've honestly done like a lot of calls with, like, you know, even our own customers who are like, can you help me pick like which one to use? And so I do think there are still a lot of teams who are reaching for more advanced tools when I still believe very strongly. And in fact, I will tell people on a demo, if they're not using a call recording tool, I'm like, you should start there. That's what you should do first. Also, Arrows is incredibly tied to call recording. So like, that's how we generate content in the sales room, is by seeing what happened in the call recording. So it's kind of a core piece you can use without. But I will always push people to, like, if you are trying to do anything in sales and you're not using a call recorder, that's your first stop. So that is where our slight argument happened, Adam, is that I think I was saying, like, getting the basic notes and just being able to purchase a call recording tool, turn those on, and get insights and reminders about what you said and your next steps, I think is sometimes overlooked, because we can get so excited about all of the advanced stuff that these tools can do. And so, and I think honestly, like, that was the biggest criticism, not just from you, from across the board, about my kind of teardown. Because what I did was I just looked at the quality of the out of the box notes for all of the note takers, and there's so much more you can do. And I know, you know, the tools that you all like to use are so much more powerful, and I hear about those all the time. And a lot of teams will never set that kind of stuff up because they're not even using anything right now, and they just need to be able to, like, turn something on. And honestly, like, for a lot of these teams, just getting it connected to the CRM, like there's still a lot of teams that even if they are using a call recording tool, they're not syncing it to the CRM. Like there's so many
which blows
basic things.
So I am 100% aligned with you on here.
Okay.
At bare minimum, you need a tool that records, that can link to your CRM in some way, even if it's just the recording link. Like if you don't have the skill set or the time or the money to map the fields, at least map the recording link and then be able to map that to your sales room. We're 100% aligned on that.
Yeah.
I would love to do a whole show with you on conversational intelligence, whole separate thing, because I think there's so much that's changing in that space, regardless of who anyone's preferred vendor is. Like, to your point, the basics are important. I am still blown away. Like we did have a customer who's been around for, God, 10 plus years, Dale, that doesn't record a single call still to this day. Forget putting it in the sales room. My first question on that is always, how do you coach your team? Because you can't sit on every call all day, every day. Like, how do you make sure people are getting better? It blows my mind.
Yeah, but even with call recording, I mean, like, it's a well-known fact that people still aren't coaching. Like, that's another whole topic. Like, people just are not coaching their teams, and you can have, but like, one of our clients has Arrows and call recording and a bunch of stuff. They get still the deals are still stale. The CRM's not updated properly. They're not coaching properly. Like, and we're mapping like spliced right into the CRM.
Yeah, the problem is, and it's with any tool, right? Any tool you have is only as good as if you use it. Recording the calls is great. How are you acting on it? Using sales rooms is great. What are you doing with it besides just sending a link? Using an onboarding plan is fantastic. How are you using that data? We're getting in a culture, in my opinion, that is just tool overload. And it's like everything has a tool that can solve a problem. Well, awesome. How are you using it? And for every tool you're buying, what are you deprecating? Little known fact. So I'm a Salesforce and a HubSpot admin. And I do a lot of our admin work for our clients. And whenever someone wants to add a field, my first question is, great, what 2 fields do you want me to remove? Because we're not just going to have, a gazillion fields. It's the same with tools. You have to use them and actually drive them to coach. Coaching is a whole nother conversation that we could do a whole separate show on as well. I don't think I've run across one org yet that does it really well and really consistently. With that, we are at time, but we have to do some rapid fire first. And the rules here that we try to stick to, Kim, are 10 words or less. Go a little more, but what we don't want to do is give Dale the opportunity to get involved in a back and forth conversation with you during rapid fire. So question number 1, what is one next steps mistake that you see in 80% of deal rooms?
Not thinking about who else is involved and just doing your next steps for your one champion.
I love it.
Yep. What's the single CRM field you wish every AE would update religiously?
Next steps come to mind, just like an accurate next step of what, and actually a buyer next steps, what is next for the buyer to actually do and take action on.
That is the key for everyone listening. Next steps, buyer next steps. Next step is not send follow-up email. That is not a next step. Kim, what's your favorite onboarding milestone to celebrate publicly? Like what triggers that Slack alert?
For us, it's our activation metric. So we have, for us, it's sending, getting 5 plans or rooms viewed. So that is our activation metric right now. And that we do have a Slack alert when that happens for our customers. And we send a congrats, you made it to this milestone to our customers to celebrate that for them too.
Nice.
What should absolutely not live in a buying facing room? Probably Adam's picture, but we won't go there.
Definitely you don't want. I have a face for radio.
I would say, I don't know about something specifically, but I do think sometimes people get excited about all the different things you can add, and then people just add things to add things. And I think being really conscious of what are the things that are actually going to help your buyer move forward and get rid of anything else.
It's like CRM fields. Go figure.
Yeah.
Kim, you can't be in any type of RevOps, system admin, COO, tech sales work. What are you going to go do? If all that's taken away from you and you're not allowed to work in any of the fields we work in now, what are you going to go do for the next round?
Oh gosh. I I originally went to school for design and was initially a designer in my career. And I think I kind of shut off the creative part of myself for a long time. And I feel I've been able to do that more at Arrows, be creative in lots of different ways. So I don't know. I could see myself doing something like that. Maybe not being an actual designer, but doing something that is more creative and design oriented.
Cool. As we wrap this thing up, dream vacation destination.
Okay. I've had the Rick Steves Scandinavia book for like the last year and a half.
Nice.
I've traveled a lot. I actually did like a year and a half full-time travel, but I've never been up there. And that is the thing that I want to do, but I feel like I have to like make a good plan to hit a bunch of spots. So I wouldn't say it's like a dream, but that's like my next spot on my list.
Awesome.
Super cool. Good place. Kim Hacker, COO of Arrows, thank you for joining the show, for sharing all your knowledge, sales rooms, onboarding plans, conversational intelligence, and overall just how you get better visibility into the buying process.
Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.